People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Carl Jung. It always starts the same. She looks at you, not as you are, but as who she thinks you could become. You can feel it in her eyes, can't you? That look, that quiet flame of possibility. Or is it hunger? You think you're being seen. You're not. You're being analyzed, measured, weighed, examined like a clean canvas, waiting to be filled with her personal masterpiece. But you're not the masterpiece. You never were. Carl Jung didn't dress this up with polite language or pop psychology fluff. He dissected the human mind like a surgeon. His entire life was devoted to unmasking the unconscious, the dark engine of the psyche most people pretend doesn't exist. And what he uncovered about women would scare most men into silence. Jung discovered that women don't fall in love with men. They fall in love with the idea of men, the image, the fantasy. And most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. You thought she was choosing you. She wasn't. She was choosing the illusion of you she built in her head. A psychological puppet cast to fill a role she's been scripting since girlhood. And when you break character, when you stop following the lines, she doesn't rewrite the story. She replaces the actor. Jung called this projection the animus, the internal male image that lives inside every woman. And when that animus is unrefined, unhealed, or unconscious, it becomes a tyrant, a spiritual parasite. It fuels attraction to chaos. It makes her crave dangerous men and resent the grounded ones. It makes her argue without clarity, dominate without wisdom, moralize without accountability. Jung didn't romanticize this. He described it as a kind of possession, a state where the woman is no longer acting from her own soul, but from the grip of a psychic hallucination. And men, you fall for it, over and over. Why? Because nobody taught you to see the difference between being wanted and being known. You mistake being desired for being understood. You confuse attention for love. You believe her when she tells you you're different, but you're not different. You're just the latest face in a long-running play she's been performing for years. And when the illusion cracks, when the projection shatters, you're left spinning, confused, hollow, ashamed. But you didn't fail. You just stopped acting. Jung warned that the only exit from this tragic theater is the path of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole within yourself. But here's the part that most men can't stomach. Almost none of you ever begin that path. You've been trained to chase her approval, to see yourself through her eyes, to let her define your worth. And so, you repeat the same pattern again and again, cast in a different scene, always expendable when the crowd gets bored. Individuation isn't pretty. It's not inspiring. It's brutal. It asks you to face everything inside yourself that you've hidden, the fear, the shame, the broken pieces. It demands you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start learning to see yourself. Because here's what Jung knew, and what most modern men will never understand. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. You don't gain worth from her affection. You gain it by standing alone, alert, awake, and fully responsible for who you are. A man who has stared into his own unconscious can't be manipulated by projection. He's not a toy. He's not a role. He's not a placeholder in someone else's story. He's the author now. Jung saw clearly. The real tragedy isn't that men are rejected. It's that they're so desperate for acceptance, they willingly mutilate themselves to fit someone else's mold. You call it compromise, partnership, love. Jung called it what it really is, self-betrayal. Because when a man ignores his inner development, he becomes a slave to the projections of the women around him. He bends, he twists. He becomes whatever shape she wants, even when she doesn't know what she wants. And so you stop being a man and become a mask, a smile, a script, a routine, until you forget who you were before the mask. And here's the bitter irony. Women sense this deeply. The things you think will make her love you being agreeable, always available, never disruptive, become the exact reasons she loses attraction. Why? Because the feminine instinct, Jung taught, is not drawn to safety. It's drawn to depth, to mystery, to the man she can't fully decode or control. The moment you strip yourself bare to her, no limits, no sense of self, no fight, she doesn't fall deeper in love. She starts to pull away. You don't become more lovable, you become invisible. And yet most men keep doing it, because you fear solitude more than you fear self-deception. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather live a lie than stand alone. But Jung said this: no man becomes free until he learns to embrace his solitude, to face the cold silence of his own being and survive. He called individuation a death before death, the burning away of false identities until only the truth remains. But here's the part no one tells you, that death is lonely, unbearably lonely. Because once you start to wake up, you begin to see what others can't. You see the masks, the lies, the social games, the emotional theater. And when you try to speak that truth, they recoil. You'll be mocked, misunderstood, labeled cold, arrogant, antisocial. But you're not the problem. You're the mirror. And nothing scares people more than a mirror that reflects what they've spent their lives avoiding. Jung spent years treating patients who were terrified of this inner confrontation. And women, he warned, are often socialized in ways that reward them for avoiding it altogether. They're told they're pure, intuitive, already whole, just as they are. Jung didn't buy that. He said the greatest danger to a woman was her unexamined animus, the male voice inside her that speaks with arrogance, false certainty, and unearned moral superiority. If she doesn't confront it, she becomes possessed by it, projecting it onto every man she meets, blaming them for a war she refuses to fight within herself. And you? You thought you were going to save her. You thought your love would be enough, that you could convince her to see you, not the fantasy. But projection doesn't work like that. Projection steals. It swaps out reality for illusion. And unless both of you wake up, you'll keep reenacting the same doomed play, blaming each other while dancing with shadows. And here's the cruelest twist. The woman who once saw you as her dream will soon see you as her disappointment. Not because you changed, but because you failed to live up to the fiction she never told you she'd written. Jung called this inevitable when neither man nor woman takes responsibility for their own psyche. You didn't deceive her. You simply failed to meet the silent expectations of a fantasy you never agreed to perform. And that's what she'll resent. Not your flaws, but your failure to embody the myth. Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Nowhere is that more obvious than in love. We call it romance. He called it possession. You think you're the exception, that this time it'll be different. But it never is, because you still haven't asked the one question that could change everything. What if I'm the one creating this pattern? You want to blame women. You want to call them manipulative, fake, superficial. But Jung would ask you something else. Why did you let yourself be chosen by her in the first place? See, the man who won't face his own inner feminine, his own longing, his need to be seen, his hunger to be loved, will become enslaved to hers. You chose the part, because playing the fool felt easier than facing your emptiness. Jung didn't give you hacks. He didn't hand out affirmations. He gave you a challenge. And make no mistake, that voice will fight you. It will scream. It will plead. It will seduce you. Free from projection, free from performing, free from needing to be anything other than whole. He attracts them. She won't flood you with fantasy. She won't idolize you. She won't seduce you with the myth of completion. Because she's done her own work. She's met her shadow. She's confronted her animus. She'll meet you, not as a goddess looking for worship, but as a human being, finally ready to walk beside another, with no masks, no projections, no delusions. And in that rare kind of love, there's no pretending, No performance, no prison. You'll go back to the act, to the applause, to the safety of being seen as something you're not. But if you keep going, if you strip away every false identity, you'll eventually meet someone even more terrifying than any woman. You won't need women to validate you. You won't need love to complete you. You'll finally know who you are, and that's when you'll attract women who want the truth, not a story. And she'll no longer be the mother, the savior, the mirror. She'll be your equal, your ally. Not because you need her, but because you choose her. From a place of strength. From a place of wholeness. From a place that no longer apologizes for existing. That the man who refuses to face himself will forever be trapped in the fantasies of others, especially those cast by women. To walk the path of truth, to stop blaming women, to stop waiting to be chosen, to become the man who finally chooses himself. And if that's you, if this spoke to something buried deep inside you, don't scroll away. Because there's another man out there still trapped in illusion, and he's waiting for someone to show him the way out.